UFC Singapore, your main event,
Mm.
where Max Holloway ends the career
Yeah.
of a legend, the Korean Zombie. It happened in round three.
Hmm.
Let me just ask you off the top for the fight itself, and we'll kind of transition into a little bit about the Korean Zombie. Obviously, give him his flowers. Did the fight exceed your expectations? I feel like this is kind of a softball for you, but
Hmm.
did it exceed your expectations? Did either guy end up showing you more than you were expecting going in?
Yes, and that would be Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie. He looked much better than I would have anticipated. Much better than a plus 550 underdog, which is what we were talking about when we previewed these fights. So yeah, he hung in there, landed some big shots on Max. I think definitely made Max think like, oh shit, okay, I can't really take this one easy on the old man Zombie. So he looked great for as long as he could. He came out in round three and he was ready to. He's like, this is it, kill or be
Yeah,
killed.
he
I'm
really did.
retiring. I'm taking you with me if I can beat you. So that was the mindset. It obviously cost him in the end, but God, it was worth it. That what a way for the Korean Zombie to go out than by having a war for
Yeah.
23 seconds of a round and then going down. It was amazing for him. Shout out to the Korean Zombie. It was unbelievable. But yes, the fight was better because of him.
I mean, this was the best case scenario, I would say, for this fight. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
hardly anybody was giving him much of a chance to win here. Max Holloway, so damn good still. And like I kind of said in the preview, when you're a guy in Chan Sung Jung who has built this reputation and has earned this reputation, dare I say, for being a guy that is so durable, that really goes to war every time out there, finds a way to win by
Hmm.
simply biting down on the mouthpiece, landing the harder shot. Like he's really built that reputation. He's had comebacks. He's been winning fights and lost in the last second. You know, the Yair Rodriguez won. Like the unpredictability of his fights. But
Mm.
one thing has remained the same, and that is that he's not an easy guy to take out. You know, he's very hard for that, and obviously that nickname, the moniker, the legacy that he's built will stand and
Oh
show
yeah.
that.
Oh yeah.
But it did kind of go the way I thought in the sense that when you're a guy who depends on some of those traits, you know, not necessarily the skill, like obviously he's a very skilled fighter, but the reputation he built for himself was earned. But if there's one guy who can match him
Mm.
in that, it's Max Holloway. The man
Yeah.
has by far absorbed the most significant strikes in UFC history without so much as hitting the canvas once.
Hmm.
So that's sort of how this played out. Korean Zombie landed some really hard shots, tagged Max a couple times, pretty good. You know,
Hmm.
haven't seen Max wobbled even that much. And
Yeah.
here it looked like he really got stunned by a couple times, but every time he did, Max was able to find a really good counter to hurt TKZ even more. Dropped him in the second round. Looked like he was trying to show a little mercy and maybe do the walk off, but
Yeah.
then ref didn't jump in, which, you know, I know some people probably wouldn't blame him if he did, but in hindsight, glad he didn't because I think, you know, TKZ showed a lot of resolve, but not before. Max, not known for the grappler, Dominic,
Hmm. Hmm.
latching on that anaconda choke like a black belt right there. Thought that might have been it,
Yeah.
but Zombie gets out,
Because
and
of
we
course
get
he does.
yeah, of course he does, and we ended up having a really fun 2 rounds, and then the beginning of round three, like you said, this fight probably could have went to a decision, could
Hmm.
have, or at least gone longer if Zombie had come out and continued fighting the fight he had done in the first 10 minutes. Not that he was being like super defensively sound,
Right.
but maybe a little more patience, maybe trying to take his time a little bit more. I'm sure this fight could have gone into round four, round five, maybe even a decision. But living up to his name, he
Hmm.
knew he was down 2 rounds. He saw the writing on the wall. He said, I got to go for broke, go out on my shield. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what he did. And, you know, it was really about as good as you could ask for. Like, it was a great fight.
Hmm.
He got to kind of go out the way you not necessarily want a legend to go out, but about as good in a loss, especially a
Yeah.
finish loss, that you can do. So shout out to the Korean Zombie, a great career.
Hmm.
Um, I assume this will be it for him. I know he retired. He said he will retire. I know how MMA retirements stick, though.
Yeah,
I hope he
yeah.
doesn't look too much into how good he did look at points in this fight and think, hey, maybe I got one more in me. Kind of like what I worry about with the guy on my shirt, Robbie Lawler, who looking as good as he did in his retirement fight. I hope they don't put too much into that.
Hmm.
Anything you'd like to say for the Korean Zombie, the great career?
No, man, my hat's off to him. There'll never be another one like the Korean
Yeah.
Zombie.
And I want to shift focus here for this fight because we do have one guy in this fight that is going to continue fighting, and he's fighting
Yep.
at a very high level. He's one of the best featherweights in the world. Max Holloway gets a finish, something that we had not seen from him since when was his
Ortega.
last finish? Yeah, Ortega, that's right. So, what, in your opinion, can you really take away from this performance for Max, either good or bad, as he moves forward? He's still one of the best featherweights in the world, but ultimately he has 3 losses to the champion Volkanovski. What's next for him? But what do you take away from this performance, either good or bad?
Honestly, like it's like the same Max. Nothing really
Yeah,
changed on his. Like he took some shots, I guess, by Zombie, but I think a lot of that's more credit to the Zombie than anything because Max is a hittable guy at the end of the day. So he did what he does best. I think it shows he does have underrated power. It's just a matter of unleashing it at the right time because not a lot of people are gonna rush in on Max like Zombie did there in that third round. So he shows his ability to just be intelligent and still make improvements. To show that Darce choke, anaconda choke, whatever you want to call it, in that second round is enough to make people think, oh boy, okay, if I were to ever get on the ground with Max, he can, snatch
yeah,
something on real quick. So there's always little wrinkles, but all in all, it's Max Holloway. It's one of the best fighters to ever live in the 145-pound division. And yet, every single time he wins, we are left with the same question of what is next? And I never have a good answer. Because when you lose to the champion 3 times in that division, but you starch pretty much everybody else, you're in a very rare class of fighter. We've talked about 155 for years, I feel like, or how many fights Max will have to fight to get a fourth fight with Volkanovski. And I just simply don't know the answer to either one. So even today, now on a 2-fight win streak, I have no idea what is next for Max Holloway now.
that's a very fair assessment. And in order to not sound repetitive, I mean, I do agree with everything you just said about what he showcased here and kind of how ultimately it doesn't really change much about how you view him as for me, how I view him as a featherweight. I will admit, the shots that he continues to eat, and here obviously they did have at least somewhat of an impact on him. I mean, obviously the durability is unprecedented levels
Yeah.
of great, but I find myself feeling not too good about the idea of him going to 155
Mm,
pounds. Like after the way he looked against Dustin Poirier, which I know was a great fight, but I think people look back on that fight with kind of rose tinted glasses. I think if you really go back and watch that fight, I mean, it's pretty one sided for Dustin
yeah.
Poirier. It's a great fight, but I don't think it's as close as some people would like to remember it being. And I remember when we watched that live, we were talking about how undersized Max
Yeah.
looked at 155 pounds. Could he take the time and maybe adjust his body a little more to fill out a little bit more at 155 pounds? I'm sure he could, but I don't think it would be significant enough to say that he would be a big
Yeah.
lightweight. I don't think that's even in the cards for him. And for his style, where he does eat punches, he has really fast hands, great boxing. Definitely showcase some power here,
Hmm.
but he's not known as a power puncher. Definitely known as more of a volume guy. So when you go up 10 pounds, when the guys are bigger, that's going to be even more in play there. You're going to have to depend more on your volume, less on your power to get the job done. But you're taking shots from harder punchers at 155 pounds.
Hmm.
I get it. Max is like got the best shit in the world, but it's still the question of how long is that going to last. So
Yeah.
for him to maximize the time he has in this sport, I feel like he's best suited to stick to featherweight. So really, he's sort of at the mercy of the champion Volkanovski here
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
Volkanovski wants to go back to 155, and it seems like the direction though is he will be defending next against Ilya Tuporia.
Hmm.
If he wins there, I feel like there's no question his next fight will probably be at 155 pounds.
I would imagine.
So if you're Max Holloway, you probably take some time. I mean, this is
Yeah.
definitely this turnaround for him is quicker than what we have seen from him over the last few years.
That's
You know,
true.
what it was about 4 months
Hmm.
turnaround here from when he beat why am I Arnold Allen
Yeah.
back in April. So I think we probably won't see him for a while. I think he's going to kind of let the top of this division play out, see what happens next. You know, we'll talk about it, but Giga Chikadze called out Yair Rodriguez
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
his post fight interview. So maybe if Giga gets a win there, that presents another fresh guy into the top five. But ultimately, if you're UFC, you gave up Arnold Allen, who loses the Max. Like, how many guys, how many fresh contenders do you want to
Hmm.
have fight Max and risk losing them as potential title challengers? Ilya Tuporia was able to kind of weave his way through there without having to face that test. But inevitably, if Max is going to continue fighting at 145, if Alex is going to continue fighting at 145, something's got to give there eventually. Either Alex is going to lose the title and that's going to open up Max to fight for it again, or we're just going to keep going in circles here. So that's the reality of the situation. Do you, now that I've kind of presented it that way, do you have any sort of lean on maybe how you see this playing out? Like, do you think Max stays put? Do you think he goes up? It's not about what you think he should do, but maybe what you think he will do.
Yeah. Oh man. I feel like he will take some time, like you said, for sure. This was a quick turnaround for his standards. 155 is something I could see him doing. I think he does have genuine interest in fighting some of those guys up there. But you're right. Like the power and the size difference, man, is a major factor because the division's only been getting better since Max did it. What was that in 2019? So 4 years
Right.
ago now. So I don't know. I think he sits it out, sees what happens with this next title fight. I'm sure Volk will be fighting Ilya, hopefully by the end of the year, maybe on the December pay per view. And is there a world where we could potentially see a fourth fight between him and Volk? Could it happen if they're around long enough?
Let me ask you this. Do you have any interest in seeing it a fourth time?
Oh, no, no.
That sort of answers it. I know that's not the end all be all. I mean, inevitably, if both these guys keep winning, it's like
They
eventually.
have to almost, yeah.
But I feel like somebody eventually is just going to. If you're Max Holloway, you should not want to have to win as many fights as it's going to take
Yeah.
to earn another title shot. Like, you are in your prime athletically. You're one of the best guys in the world. You're on everybody's top 10 pound for pound list, but you don't hold a belt. You've lost
Mm.
3 times to the guy who's a champion of your weight class. If he wins a couple more and Volk stays put at 145 for whatever reason, I feel like you're right. He's just going to go up and see how it goes at 155. And I just don't have high expectations for it. I look forward to it. Would be great theater to see it just
Yeah.
because if Max, I'm so used to him being a heavy favorite at this point when he's not fighting Volk. But I think there's a route here where Volk, if he doesn't retain against Ilya, if he loses, you probably run that fight back. I mean, there's a lot that could happen. But if Alex defeats Ilya, then he goes to 155. That sort of opens up Max to fight for like an interim title or
Hmm.
something and kind of go from there. So a
Yeah.
fourth fight very well could happen, but if nobody's going to actually clamor for it, it's going to be very,
Yeah.
very hard for Max to get that.
Well said.